She's a lot more like I am in real life than any of the characters I've ever played.
There was a time when Kristy McNichol felt unavoidable. Her smile radiated warmth. Her eyes carried emotion far beyond her years. And when she appeared on screen, she didn't feel like an actress playing a role. She felt like someone you knew. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, she wasn't just another young star in Hollywood's spotlight. She was its emotional center. Viewers connected to her sincerity, her vulnerability, and her ability to make even quiet moments feel meaningful. And then, almost without warning, she stepped away. No scandal, no dramatic farewell tour, just a gentle disappearance that left fans wondering what had happened to someone who once felt so close to their hearts. Growing up, far from glamour. Kristy McNichol was born on September 11, 1962, in Los Angeles, California, a city known for selling dreams but often indifferent to the people chasing them. Her early life was not wrapped in luxury or Hollywood privilege, but shaped by modest circumstances and constant effort. After her father left when she was still very young, Kristy was raised primarily by her mother, Carolyn, who became the emotional and financial backbone of the family. Carolyn worked relentlessly, juggling jobs as a secretary, cosmetics saleswoman, and even taking small background roles in films, not out of ambition for fame, but out of necessity. The McNichol household revolved around paying bills, staying afloat, and getting through each day with determination. Stability, when it existed, came from perseverance rather than comfort, and Kristy grew up watching firsthand what it meant to endure, adapt, and keep going, even when life offered no guarantees. An unexpected door opens. Kristy's entrance into the entertainment world was not the result of long-term planning or childhood ambition, but rather a twist of circumstance that no one in her family anticipated. When Carolyn couldn't afford childcare, she brought Kristy and her older brother Jimmy along to film sets where she worked as an extra. These sets became makeshift classrooms for observation, not aspiration, until one casual comment changed everything. A crew member noticed the children's energy, their comfort around adults, and their natural expressiveness, and suggested they might do well in commercials. That offhand remark planted a seed. Soon, both Kristy and Jimmy were attending auditions, standing under bright lights in unfamiliar rooms, reading lines meant to sell everyday products. To everyone's surprise, they booked jobs regularly. Jimmy's easy charm served him well, but Kristy drew attention in a quieter, more striking way. Her expressions carried depth, as if she instinctively understood emotion long before she had words for it. A talent that felt real. From the beginning, there was something unmistakably genuine about Kristy McNichol's presence. She didn't perform in the exaggerated way many child actors did. Instead, she listened, reacted, and absorbed the emotional temperature of a scene. Casting directors noticed that she wasn't simply repeating dialogue, but responding to it, allowing moments to unfold naturally. Even as a child, she seemed to grasp emotional nuance, conveying vulnerability without effort or excess. By the mid-1970s, she was appearing in guest roles on popular television series, gradually building experience while still trying to grow up in an environment that rarely allowed childhood to linger. Acting became more than a job. It became the language through which she processed the world, a place where feelings made sense even when real life felt overwhelming. The role that changed everything. In 1976, Kristy McNichol stepped into the role of Letitia Buddy Lawrence on ABC's drama series Family, a moment that would not only define her career, but permanently shape how audiences saw her. At just 13 years old, She delivered a performance marked by emotional complexity and quiet realism that felt far beyond her years. Family stood apart from other shows of the era by addressing real-life issues such as divorce, evolving family dynamics, personal identity, and the confusion of adolescence. And Buddy quickly emerged as the emotional center of the series. Christie didn't approach the role as something to perform, but as someone to understand, portraying Buddy as a thoughtful, sensitive teenager navigating a world that often felt unstable and uncertain. Her acting carried a natural intimacy that made viewers feel as though they were witnessing genuine moments rather than scripted scenes. Critics took notice immediately, praising her authenticity and restraint, and she went on to receive 3 consecutive Emmy nominations, winning twice, an extraordinary achievement for someone so young. Almost overnight, she became a symbol of emotional honesty on television, a performer audiences trusted to reflect their own struggles with sincerity and compassion. Fame comes with responsibility. As Christie's public profile grew, so did the unseen responsibilities that came with her success. While viewers celebrated a gifted young actress rising to stardom, her private reality was far more complicated and demanding. Her income quickly became central to her family's financial stability, creating an unspoken expectation that she would keep working regardless of how heavy the pressure became. Although her mother managed her career, Christie often felt like the emotional anchor at home, carrying responsibilities well beyond her years. She later reflected on how the roles reversed, how she became the adult before ever having the chance to fully experience childhood. While her peers focused on friendships, school events, and discovering who they were, Christie's life revolved around contracts, interviews, filming schedules, and the expectation to remain composed and professional at all times. Praise followed her wherever she went, but it was accompanied by constant scrutiny and pressure, and the weight of responsibility settled in quietly, long before she understood the lasting impact it would have on her sense of self. No time to slow down. When Family ended in 1980, Christie was only 18 years old, yet emotionally she felt far older, shaped by years of carrying adult expectations. There was no meaningful pause to reflect on what she had accomplished, or time to rest from the emotional labor she had poured into her work. Hollywood moved quickly, and the opportunities arrived almost immediately. That same year, she starred in Little Darlings opposite Tatum O'Neal, delivering a fearless performance that captured the confusion, bravado, and vulnerability of adolescence with striking honesty. The film struck a chord with audiences, particularly young viewers who recognized themselves in her character's uncertainty and resilience. Critics praised her rawness and emotional courage, and her popularity surged. Magazine covers, television appearances, and public events followed in rapid succession, reinforcing her image as a confident and self-assured cultural icon. From the outside, her career appeared flawless and unstoppable. But behind the scenes, the pace never slowed enough for her to truly catch her breath or reconnect with herself outside of performance. Success without space to breathe. Following the success of Little Darlings, Christie moved directly into one demanding project after another, rarely allowing herself time to recover emotionally or physically. Films like The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia and Only When I Laugh required significant emotional depth and maturity. And once again, she delivered performances that earned critical praise, including a Golden Globe nomination. Yet, despite the accolades, she was quietly running on empty. She later admitted that she didn't know how to say no, and that decisions were often made on her behalf before she had the chance to process them. Being dependable became both her greatest strength and her most limiting trap. The industry valued her professionalism, reliability, and talent, but it rarely acknowledged the human cost of constant emotional output. Behind the success was a young woman still trying to understand who she was beyond the roles she played, navigating an adult world that left little room for rest, reflection, or personal growth. When the pressure shows. By the early 1980s, the strain of years under constant pressure began to surface. A lighter project, the pirate movie, failed to connect with critics, and the abrupt shift in public perception was jarring. For someone who had been praised for emotional depth and sincerity, the criticism felt deeply personal, even unfair. Yet the real issue was never about one film or a single review. It was the cumulative weight of expectations, exhaustion, and emotional suppression that had been building for years. Christy was still young, but she felt worn down in ways she couldn't fully articulate, sensing that something inside her was asking for care she didn't know how to give. A breaking point abroad. In 1984, while filming Just the Way You Are in France, Christy McNichol reached a point where the years of emotional strain she had quietly carried finally became impossible to ignore. The film itself focused on themes of vulnerability, identity, and self-acceptance, and in many ways, those themes mirrored what Christy was living through behind the scenes. Far from home, working long hours under pressure, she began experiencing intense anxiety, physical exhaustion, and emotional overwhelm that made even simple daily routines feel insurmountable. She tried to rely on the same determination and professionalism that had sustained her since childhood, telling herself to push through as she always had. But this time, her body and mind resisted. The entertainment industry at that time rarely acknowledged mental health struggles with compassion or clarity, often framing them as personal failings rather than human limits. What Christy was experiencing was not a lack of strength, but the natural consequence of years spent giving emotionally without pause, recovery, or space to simply be herself. A reality that very few around her were prepared to recognize or understand. Choosing health over expectations. When Christy returned home from France, medical professionals confirmed what she had already begun to sense deep inside, that she needed rest, care, and understanding, not more pressure to keep performing at the same relentless pace. The public narrative surrounding her situation was often simplified or distorted, but the truth was deeply human and painfully quiet. She was trying to protect her well-being after years of ignoring her own needs. Eventually, she returned to complete the film, honoring her commitments while knowing something fundamental had shifted inside her. The spark that once made acting feel effortless was dimming, replaced by a longing for calm, balance, and emotional safety. Hollywood, however, rarely allows space for healing, especially for those it has grown accustomed to relying on. The same system that had elevated her talent struggled to accept her need to slow down, revealing just how little room there was for vulnerability in an industry built on constant output. Stepping away from the spotlight. In the years that followed, Christy continued acting, but her relationship with fame and performance had irrevocably changed. She took on additional projects, yet the fulfillment she once found in her work no longer came naturally. Over time, she gained clearer insight into her mental health, helping her understand the emotional highs and lows that had shaped much of her life since adolescence. This growing awareness allowed her to begin reframing her experiences not as personal failures, but as signals that she had been carrying too much for too long. Throughout this period, her brother Jimmy remained a steady and grounding presence, offering quiet support without judgment or expectation. For the first time in her life, Christy allowed herself to be cared for, rather than always being the one who held everything together. A shift that marked the beginning of a more compassionate relationship with herself. A gentle return to television. In 1988, Christie found a renewed sense of stability when she joined the NBC series Empty Nest, playing Barbara Weston, a thoughtful and capable police officer navigating adulthood while living with her widowed father. The tone of the show was lighter than the emotionally demanding roles of her earlier career, and the working environment offered something she had long been missing: consistency. The schedule was more predictable, the cast was welcoming, and the atmosphere felt genuinely supportive rather than relentlessly competitive. Audiences responded warmly, happy to reconnect with a familiar face who had once meant so much to them. For a time, the balance felt sustainable, and Christie appeared more at ease. Still, even in this healthier setting, she became increasingly aware that true well-being required more than external stability. It required setting boundaries she had never learned to establish before. Leaving on her own terms. In 1992, Christie made a decision that surprised many when she chose to leave Empty Nest during its successful run. At the time, the explanation given was brief and vague, but years later she openly shared that she was managing bipolar disorder and needed to step away for her mental and emotional health. Speaking publicly about her diagnosis took courage, especially in an era when such conversations were still heavily stigmatized. Her honesty helped shift perceptions, encouraging greater understanding and compassion for mental health challenges, particularly among those in high-pressure careers. Christie returned briefly for the series finale, offering fans a sense of closure, but after that, she quietly stepped away from acting entirely. This time, her departure was not driven by exhaustion alone, but by a clear and intentional choice to prioritize health, self-preservation, and authenticity over continued visibility. Life beyond the camera. After leaving Hollywood behind, Christie embraced a slower, more intentional way of living that allowed her to reconnect with parts of herself that had long been overshadowed by performance and expectation. She began teaching acting, finding deep fulfillment in mentoring young performers, and sharing what she had learned, not just about technique, but about empathy, self-awareness, and balance. Teaching allowed her to remain connected to creativity without the pressures that once defined her career. Her days became grounded in simple routines, physical activity, meaningful friendships, and the companionship of her dogs, who offered unconditional presence and comfort. Fame, once central to her identity, no longer held the same power. Instead, peace, stability, and emotional honesty became the measures by which she defined success. Love, loss, and growth. Christie's journey toward healing was not without heartbreak, and in 1997, she experienced profound loss when her longtime partner Elizabeth Brooks passed away from cancer. The grief was deep and enduring, leaving a lasting imprint on her life, yet it also expanded her capacity for empathy and understanding. Rather than withdrawing from the world, she gradually found ways to channel her pain into compassion, becoming more engaged in charitable efforts related to health, wellness, and emotional support. Loss became part of her story, but it did not define her entirely. Instead, it strengthened her commitment to living with kindness, patience, and awareness of others' struggles, deepening the quiet wisdom she had gained through years of reflection. Living her truth. In 2012, Christie publicly shared that she was gay and had been in a loving relationship with Marty Allen since the early 1990s. The announcement was not framed as a headline-grabbing revelation, but as a simple act of honesty and self-acceptance. She explained that her intention was to help young people who felt different or isolated feel seen and supported. By speaking openly, she hoped to offer reassurance to those navigating their own identities in silence. With Marty by her side, Christie built a life defined by trust, laughter, and mutual respect, far removed from the instability and pressure that marked her early years in the spotlight. Together, they created a sense of home rooted in authenticity rather than expectation. A life redefined today, Christy McNichol lives quietly in Los Angeles, occasionally attending fan events and continuing to inspire through the example of her journey rather than constant public presence. Her legacy is not limited to awards, iconic roles, or moments of fame, but rests in the courage it took to walk away and redefine success on her own terms. She once said that she left show business to play her most important role, being herself. In a culture that often equates worth with visibility and productivity, Christy McNichol's story serves as a reminder that fulfillment can come from choosing balance over applause, honesty over expectation, and a life that feels deeply, unmistakably true.